LA Metro Magazine podcast is here to bring you the entertaining, informative, and inspiring stories of the people who live, work, and play in the greater Lewiston, Auburn, Maine area. I'm your host, Colby Michaud. In this episode, we continue our conversation with a true champion of LA, Chip Morrison. As we cover a wide range of subject matter from business challenges due to a global pandemic, to reminiscing about his role as chamber president, to being a trombonist in the Auburn Community Band, a central theme begins to emerge. Chip loves his community. We pick right up with a talk about his transition from leaving the chamber to finding his next gig. This is LA Metro Magazine Podcast, episode 16.
So, if you want to, I'll continue the story because I finished with the chamber in 2015. Yeah, 2015. Yep. And when they announced my retirement, the president of Andrews Bank called me up and said, "Would you consider going to work for us when you're done with the chamber?"
Mr. Paul Anderson.
Mr. Paul Anderson, a wonderful human being, absolutely wonderful human being. And I said, "What would I do? I'm not a banker." And he said, "We'll figure it out." And I said, "Okay." But, as I was just about wrapping up with the chamber, board members from Make-A-Wish said, "Will you come be our temporary executive till we find an executive?" And I said, "Well, I've told the bank that I would go to work for them. I have to check with them and say if it's okay if I take a summer off and do Make-A-Wish," which was fine with Paul. So I spent the summer doing interim executive director for Make-A-Wish until I made an offer to another candidate to be full-time director. Love that, actually. I'm still a donor to Make-A-Wish.
Yes, and we actually had Kate Vickery on this program a few weeks ago.
It's such a feel-good organization.
It really is. Yeah.
Kate is wonderful. They should have hired Kate. I told them that when I left. It took two mistakes before they got to Kate, who is just an incredible human being who lives. Her veins have little Make-A-Wish.
Maybe
they do.
Yeah.
They do. And I'm in touch with her. Infrequently, but again, she's just a great person. I support her in any way I can. Then I came to work for the bank. My work for the bank was...
What was your official title with the bank?
Business development officer, but it really didn't cut what I did. I did two things. My job was to find potential clients and turn them over to other people who knew banking. Because when I went there, I said, "Paul, can I go to banking school and learn something?" I mean, it's hard to sell something that you don't really know. Now, I've been a consumer of bank products my whole life, and a customer of Andrews Goggins. But and he said, "No, I don't want you to be a technical banker. Things we want you to do is, one, find potential customers and get them interested in the bank and turn them over to somebody in the proper, whether it's commercial or whether it's personal banking or whatever it is. And secondly, I want you to be a liaison with the community and be out and visible." And I did that. It did both, and did both okay. And then last January, it was perfect timing because of the pandemic. I said to him, "I really want to turn the page and maybe have another chapter. I don't know what it's going to be, and I still haven't found it. I'm not actively looking for anything to do, but I consider things." Actually, somebody called me up and said, it's a small nonprofit in Augusta, said, "We want to talk to you about being a temporary executive director." And that's when the pandemic kicked in. So that went by the wayside. They found somebody else, and it wouldn't have worked because I was in Florida at the time anyway when they wanted me to do the work. And it's hard for me to get used to not having an office to go to, but probably half the working population who used to go to an office isn't going to an office right now anyway, because offices are places where people can catch COVID. And there will be significant consequences of the lack of human interactions. And lots of people feel it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't feel it as much because you work alone all the time. But people who are used to an office environment struggle a little bit, with the home. And in some places it's working very well. Obviously, one place I don't think I'd want to put my investments would be in office space right now, because I think there's going to be hybrids where more people are going to be working from home permanently. Pandemic will end. But they're finding out that they can do that successfully. Not everybody. It's not for everybody. I feel for the young families that have children at home and they're trying to work at the same time, and that's a very difficult situation. And for many, their daycare was closed. So even if they could work at home, they couldn't put the kids in daycare anymore because the daycares weren't open, or they weren't confident that putting kids in daycare was the right thing to do at the time. The challenges of today are very interesting challenges. I love looking at what Shanna's done with the chamber, the drive-in breakfast we're going to have next week. How creative is that?
I know. At the airport.
At the airport.
Yeah.
At the airport. Now, we've had chamber breakfast at the airport before. But a drive-in? Wow. I'm going.
You're going.
I'm going. I'm going to get my cup of coffee and my breakfast sandwich, and I'm going to listen.
Yeah.
Get a. I don't know. I guess you turn on your radio dial, and and the radio station will have the audio.
That's right. Yeah. Do you remember the guest? It's someone talking about transportation, right?
Yeah, and I don't know what. It's a chamber breakfast. I go.
Yeah, you go.
The speaker sometimes is relevant.
Yeah.
But for most people, while I was here, the speaker was the minor draw. The major draw was the people that came.
Right.
Who could make contacts with others.
It was, it's a social thing.
It's a big networking event.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had breakfasts back along. We could have as many as 300 or 350 people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Practically filling the Ramada for a breakfast.
Which amazes me as someone that can't get out of bed, without a cup of coffee,
it's one of those. We once had the State Association of Chamber Executives, called the Maine Association of Chamber Executives, MACE, was here for their conference, and part of their conference was to come to a chamber breakfast. Some of them came, not all, and they looked around and said, "Oh, how you get all these people?" They said, "I can get them. They come for each other."
Right.
And what we do is facilitate the interaction by having that. And that was cool. I love that, because what this chamber was known for was big events.
Yeah.
It had lots of people that liked each other.
Yeah. I mean, I don't imagine that your enthusiasm and your energy for the chamber wasn't, didn't have any kind of effect on that kind of attendance either.
Well, it didn't hurt it.
It didn't hurt it.
But I looked at myself as the facilitator to make the changes happen, the growth happen, the putting together different kinds of events that featured members in different ways. And then let's let them talk to one another.
Right.
It was really rewarding. I mean, I knew when I was on the chamber board back in the, late 70s, early 80s, that would be a really cool job to be a head of a chamber of commerce. Interestingly enough, if I look back in my family, my father was chairman of the chamber board of directors in the community I grew up in for decades, literally, and I didn't know much about the chamber.
Right.
I have this big plaque that that he got when he stopped, and it was one of his loves. He had several in the community. I got my love of community from both my parents, who were both highly involved in a variety of different things in the community I grew up in.
Yeah, speaking of community, I think first and foremost, you think community, you think of people, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people in this community think of you as a people person. Mm-hmm. Was that one of your, the best parts of being the chamber president was being able to get out and talk to people? Absolutely.
Yeah, go out and visit with members,
learn about them,
go to community events. Somebody, chamber member would be having an annual meeting. I'd show up. Yeah. I tried to. It was a job that was made for me.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, this is not the same person that was a teenager in Waukegan, Illinois, because I was a big-time introvert. I didn't go out to parties. I didn't go out with people. But I changed.
Yeah. When do you think that change happened?
Change happened. I went to Jane and I and our children, actually, who were 2 and 3 or something, went to a month-long training seminar called Managing Change in Park City, Utah. While I was city manager of Benton Harbor, Michigan, and I got a scholarship to go, and I paid the other half of the tuition myself. The city was a poor community. All I asked was that they give me the time off to go, and we drove from Michigan to Utah, in an old station wagon with the kids sleeping in the back, and it just changed our lives. How we interacted with each other, how we interacted with other people.
So was that for the whole family? Or was it just for you? Or?
Well, it turned out I didn't know it till we got there. And I think we probably changed the program. It was for the primary spouse, or the spouse with the primary business. There were men and women in the program. But when we got there, we all decided that our spouses who were there should be fully part of the program.
Yeah.
And so we were. And there were ways to, there were older children who took care of our little kid. Our kids were very small, and they made friends of the kids who took care of them. While they were there, they babysat them while we were in class all day. Just a life-changing experience, and changed me and my approach to work entirely.
Yeah. What was the big takeaway? What was the lesson?
Well, just about how you bring human resources together to talk to one another. I've used a lot of the things that I learned there. Start a job. You ask the people in the job, what's going on here? Tell me what's good, what's bad, and what you want to change. Every job I've ever taken since that time, I've used those same 3 questions. And I have people write it out to me. It gives me an agenda that lasts years. Because any good idea for an organization, not any, but almost all good ideas to move an organization forward come from the people inside the organization, whether it's the State Department of Administration or the State Department of Labor or the Chamber of Commerce, where I ask the board of directors and the small staff, the same questions. We went to City Auburn. I did the same thing. And I get an agenda of what needs to be changed here, and you just work on it. Some of it won't happen. Because it's either too hard or you can't build a coalition. You don't do it alone. Organizations are made up of people, and people move organizations. If you get them all moving in the same direction, it's powerful.
Yeah.
So it was a process thing more than anything else. And I use that every time I went into an organization, and I used it as a consultant to go into organizations and ask those questions and then give them the agenda that they can work on afterwards.
Right. You don't seem like the kind of person that likes to sit still.
I don't.
So first of all, thank you for sitting still for this interview. Was that aspect of the job here at the chamber, Was that one of the reasons that you were able to stay with it for so long?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. There wasn't a day. I can't think of a day when I said, I ought to get my resume. I didn't have a resume. I didn't have a resume. I made one when somebody said, I'm doing a speaking engagement, and they said, we need a resume or something. I said, I would make something up. But I think only once while I was with the chamber did I explore another job. And it was an interesting job in the retirement sector that I decided I didn't want to apply for. But I just loved it. The contact with people every day.
Yeah, every day is a different day too, right?
Every day's different. Every hour is different. Every minute's different. I work 7 days a week. Almost every week, the entire time I was with the chamber. When I traveling overseas, everybody, my family would go to bed and I'd be up at night doing email. It's a sickness, if you ask me. But I don't sleep much. Never have. 4, 5, 6 hours is all I need. And my family needs more time than that. So they sleep and I work. And that's fine with me.
Most productive hours, probably.
It's very productive. You can get a lot done. People, this is back when, I didn't have the technical capability anyway. But, people would get emails from me at 11 or 12 at night regularly because that's when I was writing them. Now you can set them to go out. I can't do that. If somebody gets an email from me at 12 o'clock, I was writing at 12 o'clock, even today. And I do that. I'm up, late at night every single night. It's hard adjusting to not having a job to focus me on something. So I have a variety of volunteer activities that I'm doing that take a lot of time, and I work on them.
And in addition to your volunteer activities, you have other hobbies.
Oh, I got lots. I have a few. My big one is I play a lot of golf. The weather this summer has been phenomenal. It's a way to get me out of the house with COVID and be outside. So, there are weeks I play 5 or 6 times. That's a lot. My body feels like it's dying right now because I played too much golf. I play cards. I haven't here. We had a couple of bridge groups at our home in Florida. I play bridge a couple times a week down there. Play bridge online, just to keep my skills up. Involvement in organizations. I'm on half a dozen community boards, very involved with Community Little Theater right now and helping them get the resources to get through the pandemic and get back to a performing time. Yeah. Same thing with May Music Society.
You're a musician yourself?
I'm a musician. I play in the Auburn Community Band for over 25 years. My poor horn sits almost unused in the corner of my room. Not completely, but I need to get back to it or it'll be gone. You lose your lip and you can't play a trombone.
Yeah.
And clearly we won't be playing until after the first of the year. We talked about maybe doing some rehearsals this fall and decided, no, that's not smart.
Right.
And that's the right decision. I probably would have been one who said, if there's enough distance between me, I'll play. But smarter heads prevailed and said, don't take a risk with this. Mm-hmm. There's spit that comes out of those horns.
Projected.
Well, interestingly enough, the only instrument which projects, I think, I may be wrong on this, is a flute. Because you don't blow into it, you blow across it.
Right.
Everything else you're blowing into. So when I'm blowing in, my mouthpiece on a trombone completely contains the air that I'm projecting.
Until it goes out the
bell. It doesn't go out through the bell. It sits in there forever. That's why you clean the spit out of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It gets trapped in there.
It gets trapped. I think, but it's the right decision not to. And as much as I miss it, and I missed it last summer, Wednesday nights were horrible. I didn't have a band concert. And I didn't get I could have practiced what would have been our concerts, but I didn't.
Right.
Just spent more time at the golf course.
What does coffee, soda, and chocolate have in common? They all contain caffeine. Hi, I'm Nicole, Association Director of Health, Wellness, and Fitness at the YMCA of Auburn, Lewiston, with some information about the world's most widely used drug. Consumed by about 80% of adults, caffeine is the most popular stimulant. Every day, millions rely on it to increase wakefulness, alleviate fatigue, and improve concentration and focus. Caffeine abuse by young people has increased due to the fact that it is added to many products including gum, jelly beans, waffles, and even water, to name a few. Evidence suggests, however, that moderate coffee consumption can be beneficial. It can improve memory, decrease fatigue, and improve mental functioning. The FDA recommends a maximum intake of 400 milligrams a day, about 4 or 5 cups of coffee for healthy adults. American Academy of Pediatrics discourages caffeine and other stimulants for children and adolescents. Here are the most common caffeinated beverages and their caffeine amount. An 8-ounce cup of coffee can vary from 94 to 200 milligrams. A 12-ounce can of cola, 35 to 45 milligrams. An 8-ounce energy drink, 70 to 150 milligrams, varying by brand. An 8-ounce cup of tea, 14 to 60 milligrams, depending on the variety. Black tea has much more than green, for instance. We all need a little pick-me-up occasionally. However, remember, everything in moderation. For more health and wellness tips and to learn more about the YMCA of Auburn Lewiston, visit us online at alymca.org or stop by and see us.
You've been part of many different communities and municipalities over the years. What is unique about Lewiston Auburn?
Unique about Lewiston Auburn, and it is unique about Lewiston. I would say it was unique about Maine, but it's more characteristic about Lewiston Auburn is people work together so closely and they care about each other. I mean, this is, it's different than any other place. That's why our chamber events are so good. People come to those events because they like each other.
And they care.
And they care. And if somebody asks you, you say, yeah. I met a young man here this morning. I met this morning before you came here. Called me up, said he'd met me a couple of times. Didn't call me up. He sent me an email. Says he wants to talk about this business he's starting. And I said, I'm a little out of practice on that, but so we spent an hour and a half here this morning talking about it. I gave him some ideas. He's going to get back to me. Got people he has to talk to, and actually, he knows Sam at the chamber, and Sam's going to help him too. So it's a good thing. We work together. We try to help each other in every way, shape, or form. I never out of hand told somebody, no, I won't do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes I couldn't do it because it didn't have the time, didn't have the knowledge. But the essence of a good chamber of commerce is, in my mind, they don't say no very easily. They try to figure out how.
Yeah, they try, yeah.
Yeah. And, when there are lots of sheep in the flock, it's hard to give individual time all the time. It was perfect for me. There never would have been a better job. I knew it, the second I walked in, and before that this, because I'd watched it and how it played out. I think I helped them grow the franchise a little bit in terms of just how the role it played in the community. This chamber plays a bigger role in the community than most do. Because it is the number one volunteer organization in the community, and people look to it. And I think that's because all types of organizations are welcome. Clearly, the vast majority of members are businesses, but they're nonprofit organizations, which are just a nonprofit business is what it is, chartered a little differently. But they employ an awful lot of people, and they're very important to the community. So, and that's a different. Some chambers don't do that. Well, most do now, because it's 15, 20% of the workforce. Depends on how you count hospitals. They're our biggest employers and have been forever.
Right.
That's not recent.
Right. Did you ever have mentors?
My first boss in Des Moines was a great mentor. And, he taught me that you got to let other people do it. You can't do it yourself. Now, that's hard in the chamber world, let me tell you, because there ain't many people around. So when you delegate, you do a lot of delegating with the mirror in front of you saying, what are you going to do tomorrow? But it's bringing people together to do things. And then if you ask somebody to do a job, whatever it is, whether you got to support them. And when you do, miracles happen.
Mm.
Yeah. And I remember that first guy. I was 23 years old. I was assistant city manager in a community of 200,000 people. We had 2,200 employees. And the boss, I was down we had several buildings that housed all the offices, and I was down talking to the planning director. And something he was resistant in doing, and I said, no, you really have to do that. We need that done. And I left and walked back to my office, which is a building away. And as I walked in to tell my boss what I just told the planning director, he was telling the planning director, if Chip told you to do that, just do it. Don't question it. And that's a great lesson for bosses. Support your people. And it works. Yeah, clearly I think he thought I was competent. And I wouldn't have done anything that knowingly that was off the charts. I was young. I made some mistakes. That wasn't one of them, as it turned out. Mm-hmm. And that reverberated through the entire organization. I never had another problem. And that's nobody ever questioned what I asked them to do. And it wasn't I ordered them. I just said, I think it's a really good idea if you do this, whatever it was. And I can't even remember. It was a neighborhood issue of some sort. Get your staff down in the neighborhood and talk to them about what's going on in this neighborhood or something like that. And that wasn't what they did then. But we changed, and we did.
And that's something you've never forgotten.
Never forgot that. I also had my parents were my mentors by example. Yeah. All the work they did in the community. My dad on the hospital board and on the chamber board, on the president of the Urban League. I have a picture of my father in 1968. Was one of 3 white people marching in a sea of black people after Martin Luther King was assassinated. He and my uncle and one other. Wow. I am so proud of him and what he did. And I don't think I wasn't there because I was in graduate school at the time. So I wasn't home. I wouldn't have known about it. Yeah. My brother unearthed this photo. Yeah. It's really cool. But that's the kind of leadership. My mother was chair of the school board for a gazillion years. And was a force. And they taught me the community was important. Probably why I didn't go into my dad's business, because I thought community work was more important. Because he taught it to me.
Yeah. By example. Mm. Another resource for learning, books. And you were telling me earlier that you love to read.
Yeah.
Can you, out of all the books you've read,
there isn't one. I read solely for pleasure. I read lots of magazines, whether it's Smithsonian Magazine or National Geographic, and I get lots of interesting stuff. That's my nonfiction. Books, if it isn't 100%, it's damn close to 100% fiction. And it's whodunits. James Patterson novels. I've probably read 90% of them. I read them fast. I don't remember them afterwards. Sometimes I pick them up later and read them again because I forgot I read it. I get into this seems awfully familiar. I need to put a check mark on the book jacket. Sometimes I read with a Kindle. Not often. I read very fast when I read that way. I'm flipping the damn thing. Yeah. So I don't remember it I mean, it's just like I don't remember movies I've seen. I enjoy the hell out of them, and then I can enjoy them again.
Yeah. You have a place in Florida?
We have a place in Fort Myers, a townhouse that we bought 8 years ago. And we spend, until I stopped working, I spent, some of December, February, March, and early April down there. We may spend more time, although I don't know how COVID's going to play out in this, so we may not spend.
Are you you think you're going to go at some point this winter, though?
I hope so, but I'm not sure. We have some illness in the family, and we're working around that, and whether we can go or not go. We just go for short spurts. I will go some. I mean, I'm not going to go all winter without playing golf. I'm paying for that place. I want to. It's not cheap, and I don't care about what it costs, except I want to get some return for the money I put into it. Yeah. It's fun. It's I used to be a cross country skier, and skied 4 or 5 days a week.
Wow.
I don't even know where my cross country skis are now, and they're probably way outdated.
That's really good exercise too.
It's great exercise, wow. But I don't want to be up in what's cold.
Yeah.
I don't like.
So was it the cold or was it the golf or both?
It's both. I always wanted to. I had this thing. I mean, I'm a golf addict. I admit it. Freely. And it is the golf. I wanted to live in a golf community just so I could play when I wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it happened. I mean, we never thought we could afford it. The housing bust of the middle 2000s got us an affordable condo. That we bought for a third of what it was sold for originally. Yeah. Otherwise, we couldn't have. I've never made a lot of money. So, saved some and put that toward it. So we now own a place. That was kind of a dream. My folks lived down in Florida. Actually, when they moved from Illinois, they moved to Georgia first, where they lived in a golfing community. Neither one of them played golf, but that's a whole nother story.
No, I can imagine it's still nice, even if you don't play golf.
It is. And, the only thing I ever was upset with my parents about the decision they made, they had this beautiful place in Georgia. They sold it and didn't tell us. Kids would have bought it from them.
Yeah.
And they moved to a contained retirement community because they were getting on in years. They both lived to be 90 and 97, so they lived a long time, but they needed a place where they had care. And they recognized it themselves, sold their place and moved to Florida and didn't tell us. And my brothers and I would have bought their place in a minute. Yeah. So we might have been living in Georgia now, but my parents did it their own way. Yeah. My children will say the same thing.
Everything happens for a reason, right?
Yes, it does.
So now that you're retired, but you're still involved with a lot of things. What's the thing that inspires you every day? What's the drive to get you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, there's several things. It's whatever passionate thing I'm doing right now. I mean, I got to be doing something. I mean, like you, I'm a person in motion all the time. And staying home is just not part of that. And sitting around during the day and reading a book is never part of that. When we're in Florida, I'm out bicycling and, I'm up here some, although I've had some problem with one of my legs that I haven't biked as much as I would have wanted to this summer up here. I'm just looking for things to do. I've recently got this interesting national organization I've affiliated with called Braver Angels. And they are trying to get the angst out of politics. This people at each other's throats. As a nation, we're floundering, in my mind, because we can't talk to one another. We scream at one another. That isn't appropriate. That isn't how good decisions get made. And that's not a part. I mean, I'm a nonpartisan. I've been a lifetime nonpartisan. Because my parents were. as it turns out. Doesn't mean I don't have strong feelings in elections. I usually do. I can't remember never in my entire life have I voted a straight ticket for any party. I don't believe it. I don't believe in it. It's like a religion to me now. But we need to start talking to one another civilly. So we're working with groups to help to try to get this kind of conversation going. Actually, I approached the chamber, and Shannon, the chamber board, are on getting involved in this, called With Malice Toward None, which is meet people where they are, and appreciate them for their differences, and try to find solutions to whatever the problems are. Don't denigrate them for who they're supporting, no matter who it is. Doesn't matter. I mean, it's I have friends who are avidly supporting each of the presidential candidates. I mean, living and dying and screaming at people because of it. And this is equal opportunity screaming. I've seen Democrats screaming at people, and I've seen Republicans screaming at people. And, each side says, well, they do it more than we do. I hate to tell them they do it equally. Yeah. That doesn't accomplish anything. And what we're trying to do is get people to commit to civil discourse after the election. Tear each other's throats out in the campaign, but agree that we are going to come together and try to solve our problems afterwards. I think the vast majority of people I've talked to think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
They just can't give themselves permission to get into that mode while the campaign's going on. Mm-hmm. I hope it's successful, because politics is very different. I mean, I've been involved in politics at some of the highest levels, state anyway, and it was never like this. Did people of different political persuasions argue with one another? Sure. Did they argue strenuously? Yes. But in their last analysis, they could sit down and work out a problem. And I don't think they can now. And I'm terribly distressed about it. Yeah. Because I don't think it is a good symbol for the future of a country I love dearly. It isn't one or the other. It's all of us. So that's one of my passions right now. I mean, that's not local, although I'm trying to bring it to local. I'm an optimist at heart, so I hope that we will make inroads. It's a long-term process. That's all I can tell you. And it isn't going to change overnight, and you're going to have to be at it till I can't talk anymore, probably.
Yeah. Would you say you're a risk taker?
Somewhat. Not
Somewhat.
as much as people would think I am. I'm scared to death of heights. I mean, I wouldn't go on a downhill slope if you made me.
Really?
Not because of the slope. I've managed some pretty decent slopes on cross-country skis. But the fact of the matter is, it's the chairlift that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, when I first got in the lift, though, the first time I ever got on a chairlift, that was pretty nerve-wracking.
I can remember the first time I went skiing was when I was in college. And this was out in Minnesota, and we all went because we hoped we'd break a leg and we couldn't take finals. But I got scared on a rope tow. I said, this isn't right.
I've done that a couple times. Yeah, that one. Yeah. I prefer the chair.
I prefer a gondola, because then I have a floor
Enclosed
under me.
Yes, with the heater. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't have gondolas on Lost Valley, which is my ski slope.
Yeah, yeah.
I never skied anyplace else, I don't think. Yeah. I mean, it's in Wisconsin, but not here. Mm-hmm. And my kids learned to ski at Lost Valley. Yeah. And they both downhill skied pretty well.
All right, so I think we got one final question for you, Chip.
Okay.
At least for the record, I would say that you've lived and continue to live a pretty meaningful life. Would you agree with that?
I do.
How does someone, maybe that's someone that could be listening to this, maybe they're not feeling completely fulfilled in what they're doing. What I say to them?
is get involved. Get out of your comfort zone. Some people don't get involved because they don't know who to ask. I'd say to them, come to the chamber and ask if no place else. But pick an organization that you admire. Look at their website. They all need volunteers, all of them. And get involved in what's your passion, whether it's, grooming ski trails or, you could do almost anything that you like to do. You could find an organization that does it that could use a volunteer. Some of the most fulfilling stuff I do. I don't like going to board meetings. I'm everybody's favorite. Will you be on this board? Yeah. Yeah. Because that's the administrative side of it. It's a necessary thing to do to keep organizations going, and I do it. I would much prefer to serve meals at Trinity, or pack food at Good Shepherd. Done both of those things. It's one of those, there's so much that's available for people to do to help others. And it's so needed. That's what makes communities work. One of the things that I'm proud of, that the work I did at the bank, was help people find activities that they could do that they really enjoyed and added meaning to their lives. That's fun. When I got a match, I loved it. Teach somebody how to read through literacy volunteers. It's a hugely important organization. Hugely important. One of the smallest budget organizations you'd ever imagine. And they need help. And it's not just contributions, they need volunteers. To work with people one-on-one, to learn the language. Or learn the language better. Hard thing for me to do because of my hearing deficiency is to teach people language, because I don't hear well enough, particularly consonant sounds, that it's very difficult. And I've kind of shied away from that. I shouldn't, but it's like, what'd you say? All the time.
Yeah, I can imagine that's when you're trying to teach.
The advice to somebody is get involved. Try it. If you don't like it, stop it. But the fact of the matter is, people need resources. And a lot of those resources have nothing to do with money. They just have to do with somebody's time. And you'll find very rewarding work right here in our communities to do. I have, and I continue to.
My thanks to Chip for his time. It was wonderful to hear his unifying voice, a trait so characteristic of a true champion, on so many different topics. A big shout out to the YMCA of Auburn Lewiston for sponsoring this program. You can find out more about them at alymca.org. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your other shows. That way you're not missing out on future episodes when they are released. Positive vibes and well wishes from all of us at LA Metro Magazine. Until next time, I'm your host, Colby Michaud. Make sure you're being entertained, staying informed, and getting inspired.